What is up, guys? Name is Ray and welcome to another Genshin Impact video. So in today's video we're going to do a 5-star weapon comparison between Song of Broken Pine on level 90, Wolf's Gravestone and Skyward Pride also on level 90, and all of them refinement rank 1. So before we dive into the actual video, I just want to remind you guys that we're very close to 750 subscribers, where the next giveaway will happen, the next big live stream will happen. And yeah, I'll also open up my official Instagram account for Dre Gotcha Gaming. So definitely make sure to subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy the content. I was a bit lackluster during the last 2 weeks in terms of content, but we want to try and keep the pace. And of course, I will still continue to make content, so don't worry about that one. Yeah, for the video, Eula will be also level 90. I will also show the respective stats as soon as we hop into the actual showcase for that specific weapon. So artifact sets will be 2-piece Pale of Flame and 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry. The reason why I did choose this is because it is way more consistent. We cannot keep up this buff, and we gotta like maintain 2 of these stacks. So I think just give up the 50% straight physical damage bonus is the more consistent way, or the easier way to show up the new weapon. So these are like the substats of my pieces. And my Eula is, of course, Constellation 0, and talents are all up to level 6. I think I'm going to level up her Elemental Burst after recording all the videos that I did want to record. So how I want to do this, I'm going to pick Song of Broken Pine first, followed by Wolf's Gravestone, followed by Skyward Pride. The content I'm going to pick for this is Spiral Abyss for the first part and Ring Guards for the second part. We're going to talk about theoretical part of the weapons before we go into the actual showcase for each of the weapons. The combo that we're going to use will be the same. It will be E into Q into hold E for the resistance shot, and then we're going to auto attack until the Delightful Sword explodes. The reason for that is that we can see the damage numbers for all of the abilities while we're also showing auto attack damage, and see that all the weapons have a fair comparison, because we'll always do the exact same thing with all of the weapons, with the exact same build, the exact same character, and only the weapon will change. Alright, so let's hop into the first weapon, which is Song of Broken Pines. This is the new 5-star Claymore, which has the highest base attack out of all the weapons in the entire game. So as you can see, Wolf's Gravestone has 608, Skyward Pride has 674, which used to be the weapon with the highest base attack. Of course, the most important thing after the base attack is the subset, which is 20.7 physical damage. It's a decent amount of physical damage, but because of the base attack is so high, the weapon is insanely good. Wolf's Gravestone has attack percentage, and Skyward Pride, of course, energy recharge. But for the first part, we of course want to talk about Song of Broken Pines. So the passive is really long, so I tried to give a conclusion about the whole passive. So number 1 is we get a attack bonus, or an attack buff of 16%, and if we do normal attacks, we can get some stacks. We can get up to 4 stacks, and if we do reach the 4 stacks, we will trigger this buff with 12% attack speed and 20% attack bonus for 12 seconds, and this has a cooldown of 20 seconds. So basically, the numbers that are important is attack percentage, attack speed, and another attack percentage. So this buff will be straight away. For E and Q, these buffs won't be ready available, because we're going to go into E into Q into hold E. So those 2 or those 3 abilities, they won't get this buff. But after we did EQE and we start to auto attack, and after the 4th auto attack, this buff will trigger. We will definitely do more than 4 auto attacks, and after this buff triggers, the Delightful Sword will explode, and we will get the full buff or attack percentage on the ultimate. So yeah, I'll do 3 Abyss runs with each weapons. Then we're going to show off like the different numbers for the weapon, and then we'll hop into the next weapon. So let's go. So here are the stats with Song of Broken Pines: 21,000 max HP, 2,100 attack, 850 defense, 133 elemental mastery, of course with my build, crit rate, crit damage ratio 109%, energy recharge, and 129% physical damage. Alright, let's start with Song of Broken Pine. We're going to pick character defense in floor 12 chamber 1. The reason I picked floor 12 chamber 1 is just because that you will have your elemental burst right away, and I don't want to keep like spending all my time charging up Eula's elemental burst. So What we're going to do is we move straight to the enemy, go into Q, go into a elemental burst, go into the charged E, and we're going to stack up the ultimate just straight away until it explodes, and it is 113,000. Song of Broken Pines attempt number 2. And E into Q, into charge D, and auto attack. $120,000. Broken Pine record number 3. Let's go. Again, straight away. E into Q, into charge D, and auto attack. So we will definitely build up the stacks here, and we got 120,000 again. So I usually don't use too complicated math in my video, but after doing all these test runs, I wasn't able to clearly say which out of these 3 weapons is clearly the best in terms of damage. So I did some simplified calculations on that, which you're going to see after each of the showcases. So you're going to see Song of Broken Pines right now. After the part for Gravestone, you're going to see the sheet for that, and of course after the part for Skyward Pride, you're going to see the sheet for Skyward Pride. At the end of the video, there will be a big sheet where you're going to see all the numbers on one paper, so you can compare them directly to each other. Now, the important thing here is that keep in mind that these calculations are simplified. They do only work with my specific artifact build, with the assumption that I have 100% crit rate, and only on the current Abyss Floor 12 Chamber 1 against the Geo Bishop, because that was the only enemy that we did fall. So all the numbers that you're going to see on the paper here, they're all 100% crit hits. That made it easier for us to do the calculations, and also this is the exact same order that we use these skills in the video. Now I want to explain each of these parts so you can use them for Gravestone and Skyward Pride to understand what I do mean by that. And yeah, so Q cast is basically the damage number that you see after you immediately cast your Q. This is the first number that you use after you use hold E. Then it will use the Grimheart stacks, which you're going to see there. This should be the biggest white number that you will see after the double number pops off here. So if you usually if you have like 50 to 60% crit rate like I do, I think one of these 4 numbers won't crit at the bare minimum, or usually half of these numbers shouldn't crit, so it is like half the damage or a little bit less than half the damage. After you saw the physical proc, the first auto attack goes off, we go into the second, and then we go into the third auto attack. The third auto attack is a double hit, which why there are 2 numbers. So I left out the 4th and the 5th hit. Eula usually has a 5-hit combo, but for the calculations to make the list a little bit less long and easier to understand, I only used 3 hits. So after this, after the 3rd hit, this is the overall damage if we add up all these numbers. So I also didn't include the E damage here, just to make it a little bit simpler, a little bit easier to understand. And the Q lightfall damage is a little bit separate from these numbers above, just because I left out the hits after the 3rd hit, and also keep in mind that Song of Broken Pine has the ability to increase attack speed. So usually it does 1 more auto attack than with Gravestone and Skyward Pride. And we will be able to stack up till 6 to 7 times without any animation cancelling if we just straight up auto attack like we did in the video. The damage number will be 118,556. If we add up 2 of these numbers together, this will be the damage that comes out. So this is not the actual damage that we did do, because as I said, we do miss out on 1 E and on 3 till 4 auto attacks in that calculation. So the number would be a little bit higher. But because I will do this for every other weapon too, that should work. Also, these weapons do not have crit rate or crit stats in general, so they won't affect these calculations. Second weapon, Wolf's Gravestone, with a base attack of 608 and a subset of 49.6% attack percentage. Now, important thing for Wolf's Gravestone to notice for the first part of the showcase is that we only want to take a look at the first part of the passive, not so much on the second, or not at all at the second. So we will only get the flat buff of 20% attack percentage, not counting in the second part. This will be in the second part of the video, where I will showcase the damage with Wolf's Gravestone on its passive. So the passive is basically on-hit attacks against opponents with less than 30% HP. So as soon as your opponent is 30% HP or less, you will get the buff with 40% attack bonus. Keep in mind that this will also apply to your team members as well as for Song of Broken Pines, which I didn't mention, but of course it doesn't matter for the actual showcase. So this is a very huge amount of attack buff, which we actually need to take count in, but I thought it is not too practical. While Song of Broken Pines, you can always apply the passive if you only do 4 normal attacks. You can't do this with Wolf's Gravestone. It is conditional of the HP of your opponents. Alright. And of course, the stats with Wolf's Gravestone. So there should be a huge spike in attack. All the other stats won't change. And of course, also everything else won't change except for the attack percentage. We will lose a little bit on physical damage compared to Song of Broken Pines. And yeah. Second attempt is going to be with Wolf's Gravestone. Important thing here is that we are not able to use the full passive with that combo, so keep that in mind. So let's go into E, into a Q, into a charge D, and auto attack until the Lightful Sword explodes, which is right now 106,000. Wolf's Gravestone's second run, let's do it all over again. Use E, into Q, into charge D, and auto attack until Lightful Sword explodes, and it is 106,000 again. And Wolf's Gravestone attempt number 3. Let's go. E into Q, into charge D, and auto attack until Lightful Sword explodes. Should be 106,000. And last and third weapon, Skyward Pride, the weapon with the second most, or with the second highest base attack in the game, 674 energy recharge as a subset. So for Skyward Pride, we can take in all or the whole passive. It increases all the damage by 8%, easy to understand. And after using an elemental burst, our normal and charge attacks on it creates a vacuum blade that does 80% of attack, which scales off of physical damage as the opponent, and it lasts for either 20 seconds or 8 vacuum plates. We should get those all out. So how you want to do this is, as I said, EQ into hold E, and then we're into the elemental burst. And after we use elemental burst, the vacuum plates will trigger. We will do at a bare minimum 8 attacks, so we can count in the whole passive, and then the Lightful Sword will proc. And of course, Eula stats, so we will use a significant amount on attack while using Skyward Pride because it has energy recharge, but we will gain energy recharge. All the other stats shouldn't change. Of course, less physical damage compared to Song of Broken Pine. Skyward Pride, third and last weapon, test number 1. Let's see if this weapon can compete against the others. And let's go. Okay, 84,000. Skyward Pride, second attempt. And it's E into Q. Charge D again. 79,000 this time. Skyward Pride, test number 3. Let's go. $79,000. So here you can see all the different damage numbers for each of the weapons on one sheet. And I want to talk about those briefly, starting with Wolf's Gravestone. So we can see that Wolf's Gravestone clearly has the highest individual numbers for each of the abilities as well as for the normal auto attack, which of course, if we add up all of these, has the highest overall damage number before the Lightfall Sword explodes. So with 74,000 and assuming of course every hits or crits, Wolf's Gravestone is the winner until here. A very important thing that I noticed is that Skyward Pride does more damage than Song of Broken Pine, of course, if we assume that every hit is a crit, which usually should never happen. The reason why it is able to do so is because of its passive with the vacuum plates. After you use your Q, you will add up 3,921 damage if it crits on every auto attack for 8 auto attacks. And you usually won't be able to do 8 auto attacks with Skyward Pride during the Lightfall Sword or during your elemental burst. So usually, let's say in the normal case, if we wouldn't have 100% crit rate, I would say that Song of Broken Pine should deal right around the same damage like Skyward Pride. So you have like 7 hits that should crit or that needs to crit, while on Song of Broken Pine you only have 4 hits that needs to crit, which is nearly half of the amount than Skyward Pride. So if you're lucky, you have like a little bit more damage than Song of Broken Pine, but usually I would say until here, until the 3rd hit, they are equal. So afterwards, the Lightfall Sword will explode, and this is the important thing in the whole calculation. So I would say I would start with Song of Broken Pine. It is important that Song of Broken Pine can build up 6 till 7 stacks. So usually one more stack than Wolf's Gravestone and Song of Broken Pine, which also means usually one more auto hit than these 2 weapons. So I would say clearly the individual number is higher than the ones from the other 2 weapons. So it is the winner if we add up the whole combo. Then Wolf's Gravestone is nearly there. Keep in mind that for Wolf's Gravestone, we didn't include the whole passive when we're under 30% of the HP. So because I don't want to make the video too long, I will add in the last part where you're going to see Wolf's Gravestone with the passive and another chart, but I won't want to talk about this. I think it should speak for itself when I did edit this. Afterwards, Skyward Pride does clearly lose after the Lightfall Sword explodes. But Eula's most important ability is the explosion of that sword. The explosion of that sword makes up till 60 to 70% of her whole damage. So if we add up all these and would see them relatively, this one is like nearly 50-50, like 5% more or 10% more. This is also like 30% more than this, and this is like nearly double the amount of this. So her whole damage with Song of Broken Pine, it really makes a difference because this also scales off on physical damage. So I'd say that Song of Broken Pine is the most consistent weapon or the most easiest to use. It does feel really smooth. It is very cool or very smooth if you use it, but it is not clearly better than Wolf's Gravestone because, as I said, we didn't include the full passive. So I'd say that Song of Broken Pine and Wolf's Gravestone are kind of even here. You will see that in the footage afterwards, because afterwards you're going to see some additional damage numbers. I would say that Song of Broken Pine is a little bit more practical because you do not have to really pay attention on anything besides the 4 stacks, while for Wolf's Gravestone you will have to get the enemy under 30% of the HP to trigger the whole passive. Skyward Pride is really good, but it loses here. But keep in mind, it has energy recharge as a subset, so that could really help. So you can sacrifice a little bit of your damage if you want to have a more quality of life update, because the elemental burst for Eula is very energy cost heavy. So Skyward Pride is all still an option. So to conclude all these, I'd say that just in terms of raw damage, these 2 are equal. Skyward Pride is second. But in terms of quality of life, I'd say Song of Broken Pines is the best weapon for Eula. Wolf's Gravestone the second best. Skyward Pride the third best. Of course, if they're all refinement rank 1. If you build any constellations on these, I think that could change. So it could be that Wolf's Gravestone will deal slightly more damage than Song of Broken Pine with the full passive if it is refinement rank 5. Other than that, I should say Song of Broken Pine is the option. So if Eula really is your favorite character, there is the possibility to roll for this weapon if you want to. I wouldn't recommend if you have one of these two weapons already. If you don't have one of these two weapons, I would understand if you want to roll for Song of Broken Pine. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. So keep in mind that there will be the second part of the video after I will tell you guys goodbye. Like, comment, and subscribe if you did like the video, and I see you guys next time.